Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to pause.
All for being so patient. I just wanted to give a few extra minutes in case anyone was running back from lunch. Here in Eastern time zone, it's lunchtime, so we might have a few stragglers later on. But I wanted to go ahead and start this meeting, and I wanted to thank you all for being here for our Tech Talk. Just a few quick ground rules. We will all be muted except for our presenter, Abby, just so we can give her that space and be courteous, as she's giving her presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for questions to be answered. At that time, you can use the hand feature to let me know that you have a question, or if you don't have the capability to unmute yourself, maybe your audio isn't working, you can include a question in the chat box and I can read that question out loud for you. But apart from that, let's go ahead and get started. First, I wanted to thank Abby for being here today, for giving us her time to present on the relaunch of GardenSearch. And also thank you for BGCI for supporting our network here in the Caribbean and Central America. And then again, thank you to everyone joining us from around the region. Our speaker today is Abby Meyer. She's the Executive Director of BGCI US. She's based out of California, and she works tirelessly to monitor, leverage, and build the Botanic Garden ex situ conservation capacity, and focuses her work on the plants and regions that need it the most. Caribbean, anybody? We need help. Well, recently she played a very vital role in rebuilding BGCI's new generation of GardenSearch. I have been on it. Let me tell you, it's beautiful and it's gorgeous and I love it. So I'm really excited about this presentation. And I will be reaching out to gardens around the Caribbean in the coming weeks to talk about GardenSearch a little bit more one-on-one. Danny, I'm meeting tomorrow with Jessica. But in this presentation, Abby will walk us through the new GardenSearch interface and talk about the importance of accurate information to help your garden achieve BGCI accreditation, track progress towards the global strategy for plant conservation, and then here in the Caribbean and Central America to really help us build kind of a baseline for our own Caribbean strategy that we put together in our Congress back in November in the Bahamas. And so why is this important? It's important because GardenSearch helps to build capacity in the region. A lot of data is associated with it, and it's crucial for our Caribbean strategy to get them uploaded and updated. The strategy that we help develop, it's our first, GardenSearch is our first step in really assessing where we are with the objectives outlined in our strategy and really build that roadmap for where we want to focus our efforts moving forward. Sorry, got a little tickle. And now with that, I will pass it on to Abby to give us her presentation.
Thanks, Lena. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon for you. It's morning for me. But I'm really glad to be here and speaking with you all. And hopefully we'll reach additional folks too through the recording, so that will be great. We're at a really exciting time with aggregating data about gardens around the world and scaling up plant conservation efforts. So I'm excited to talk about this first step that we're taking to do that. I have a little bit of an intro about BGCI, maybe I'll start with, and then we can get into and focus on GardenSearch. So let me just try to share my slides here, or share my screen. Let me see if I can do the sharing. Got it. All right, does everybody see that? Great. So Yes, so BGCI is about securing plant diversity for the well-being of people in the planet. That's our mission. And we strongly believe that the Botanic Garden community is stronger together, and that if we work across sites and across even sectors, that the Botanic Garden community is the greatest force for plant conservation in the world. And our vision is that plant diversity is valued, secured, and supporting all life. I mentioned our mission, and we're a global membership organization with our global headquarters based in London in the UK. And then we have regional offices around the world. We have over 750 garden members around the world, and that number is growing quickly. Right now, we have about 30 staff members with BGCI. Here's a picture of the global network of botanic gardens and the over 3,000, over 3,500 really. Now we've done a reassessment or a data cleaning of GardenSearch recently. And that GardenSearch is really the key for making a map like this. So we know which institutions exist in the world and how to communicate with them. And across all of these gardens, about 30% of known plant diversity is maintained in those collections. There are about 60,000 technical experts that are employed by these gardens around the world that serve about 1 billion visitors a year, which is quite impressive if you think about all of those numbers and the reach and the potential impact that we all have. We are grateful, and we do support a number of regionally focused networks, and those include the Caribbean and Central American network. So we're really happy to have your network in our portfolio of networks that we support closely, and these really are focused around the world to the regions that are most biodiverse or most needing assistance. This is a quick picture at our programs at BGCI, and we work along this. Sorry, can you see my mouse if I put it over here? Okay, great. We work along this it's sort of a circular cycle of prioritizing, planning, acting, and monitoring for plant conservation. And we've got most of our major programs aligned here that show where things fit in. If it's familiar to folks, this Global Conservation Consortia program is one that I directly support quite a bit. And our data tools, of course, is another one that I want to highlight here today. The consortia that I mentioned, we're really excited about, and many of you all are supporting and participating in global consortia. We have a new one that I wanted to highlight, a Nothofagus Consortium, but got some really great momentum. There's 10 priority taxonomic groups, mostly surrounding species and plant groups that cannot be seed banked using traditional methods. So we focus on exceptional species often, and oftentimes those are trees. We have some goals of getting all threatened, 50% of all threatened species under active in situ conservation, and 75 in ex situ conservation by 2025. So we're rapidly approaching that goal every day with partners and gardens such as you all. Also, I wanted to just highlight, because this is very relevant to GardenSearch, to underscore the value of putting data into GardenSearch. The accreditation scheme at BGCI offers 3 levels of accreditation: a Botanic Garden accreditation, and then 2 other conservation and advanced conservation practitioner accreditation. And they aim to motivate and empower gardens to do more around plant conservation and to increase their impact. We have a number of various areas where we ask questions. And I'll just say the short story to all of this is we have aligned GardenSearch to the accreditation scheme so that we can transfer information between the two more easily, and that the valuable information that gardens are reporting through accreditation will now be accessible through GardenSearch too. So that's a win-win for everyone. Accreditation, just for folks that are interested, it lasts 5 years and you provide evidence for each of these different areas. There's a number of questions. We are here, BGCI is here to help support you in fulfilling the requirements, so we can definitely work with you and help you. I've actually helped gardens draft a strategic plan and other things to help meet the requirements for accreditation. And then you receive great things once you're accredited, including recognition for meeting the standards, which I think can be a nice leverage point. And then we recognize you all as well. I think that's all I'll say about that, since we'll move on to GardenSearch soon. And so this is a quick look at our data tools right now. We have a number of data tools that should be probably familiar to folks. They've been around for several years. PlantSearch and GardenSearch have been around for about 20 years now. But the others are relatively new. ThreatSearch, which has, it's a compilation of any threat assessment that's been done anywhere in the world, which we think is really valuable for understanding threat status, even if it might not all be in IUCN Red List at the time. Global Tree Search and Global Tree Portal are connected and very tree-centric. PlantSearch is all the collections in botanic gardens, seed banks and tissue culture, as well as living plants. And then I'll get to GardenSearch as well. It's all the resources and expertise and facilities at a garden. And finally, this is our newest one, the Directory of Expertise, which is individual people registering their own expertise to be recognized, and potentially people can reach out to them with questions pertaining to their expertise. Really quick, there's some new tools that you might have seen as well, which include PlantShare, the climate assessment tool, and Index Seminum. Those are all in place to help with responsible exchange of surplus plant material that is specifically for exchanging between botanic garden institutions. The climate assessment tool is really neat. It's for assessing the suitability of individual species at your site or at other sites in the future climate scenarios. And then Index Seminum should be self-explanatory, but it's helping to exchange the annual seed and other tissue, but mostly seed collections that are distributed through the Index Seminum system. The URLs are there at the bottom of the page if you want to learn more. But right now, let's focus in on these two in particular. And I'll just give you a quick peek at the future PlantSearch to motivate you or to hopefully inspire you. This is really where we're headed in the near future. And this is not a live site yet, this PlantSearch page. But I want to show you a little bit. If you're familiar with PlantSearch, currently it's taxon level only, so you can search at the species level. And then we're adding on exciting new features and making the data a lot more accessible, but we're also adding on new types of data, including accession level data and what we're calling pedigree records, which is plant level data. So it's individual specimen level. And I can show you a quick look at what individual specimens look like. This is for a one taxon, Brigamia insignis. And this is an example collection from Chicago Botanic Garden. And these are the individuals that might exist at their institution and the gamete type, if there are separate female or male, or they change individuals, and then their parental IDs or their heritage, their genealogy, to know who their parents were. And then there's a number of other fields that you can fill in, including the provenance of the accession or that specimen, the current health condition, and on and on. So we're very excited to be launching that. And the first step in doing this, it might not seem really connected, but the first step is that we will be getting users and gardens registered into the new GardenSearch. And this is the new URL at the bottom, which we're not publicly posting yet. We are working individually with gardens to migrate users and migrate garden data first as the first step. And so I'll take you through a peek at the GardenSearch database, and you can look yourself as well and register. I love that. And then we can move on to questions after I show you this site. But let me quickly pull up the live site. So here it is. I hope you can see it. There are a number of things. There's a basic search page, search field here where you can search for, let's just look for Naples, and we can go to Naples Botanical Garden, or we can search by a location and see if there are gardens in a certain region. So we can search by Naples Botanical Garden, and then it pops up. We can also, I can show you, let's look at, maybe I'm not searching this the right way. Here, let's go to, sorry, apologies. Let's go to advanced search. So I'll just mention, you can do both the keyword and the location here. And oh, you know what? It's by continent. So we can't search by region yet. This is actually really good to know. We are, let's just try, let's try one of the, well, let's try one of the parts of the Caribbean and see what pops up. So here's an example that might be of interest to folks. And you can search on your own as well, on your own screens at the URL that I shared, but that's the result. And actually, this is a really good test. And I'm going to actually look at how to define more regions and less more specific regions like Caribbean, for example. I just realized we parse things by continents. So I can look at, we can look at Central America, I believe. Oops, sorry, if I can type today. Let's look at maybe a more of a continent wide, a more well-known continent. Let's see. Yeah, so there's anything that pops up in North America, and that probably includes Caribbean. That's my guess, simply because of how it is traditionally. Not sure why Central America doesn't pop up, but we will see about that as well. This is a good test. Like I said, this is the first time I'm talking to a bigger group about GardenSearch, so it's actually really useful for me. So I'm making a few notes here while I'm giving this. So here's South American, for example, and you can actually just click in. This is the public website or public page without even logging in, and you can see a garden that, you know, you can see their information, contact information, and more information about where it is, how old the garden is, where the location is. You can map the location of that individual garden. Let's look at one that's been updated, perhaps. Let's see if Morton has updated their site yet. Yeah, this looks updated, I think. So you can see there's like a public email, there's their website, phone number, and then mission statement, the type of organization, and I'll show you a little bit more of these fields in a little bit, but this is the type of information that's publicly available just for people to see. And this is a good time to mention there are these other sections. So let's look at living collections really quickly, for example. Yeah, this hasn't been updated yet by Morton, and it's entirely okay. But there are, let's see, there's 6 questions here about to describe the institution's collections. And so what I'll show you now, this is a good segue to go back. Let me just show you. Sorry, apologies, there's my dog. Let's go to, I think this one has been updated, yeah. So here's a logo and an organizational, the name and the location. I can actually, if this was my garden or anywhere in GardenSearch, I can go over here and I can log in, or if you don't have an account, you can register. Here's what it looks like to register. First name, last name, and email address is all you need. I will stress it's important to use an organizational email address if you can, because we use the email, the words, the text in the email address to link to your garden organization. If you don't, that's okay. We can manually connect you as well, but there will be an additional step in that. So I'll just log in. I've got my information saved here. I guess I have access to the Arnold Arboretum, so that's great. I can also look and see if I have other, so I'm in preview mode. Here we go. Okay, so this is the gardens. If I click on my name, this is the gardens that I'm assigned to. This is the sample botanical garden that we were using for testing. And then this is a live garden that I have access to as well. One thing that might be of interest to folks, especially in other regions that maybe English isn't the first language, you can put, there's an official organization name that we have that's registered with BGCI, and oftentimes that is in English, but there's also this place where you can put an alternative name, which can include your local language name. And that will actually display at the top of your profile under the BGCI official name. This one, I don't think you can change, but you can contact BGCI to change that official name. That is connected with membership and some more administrative level things. But you can also put in, like I said, this is a new feature that I really like, because naming is, believe it or not, garden names are just as challenging as plant names sometimes. So it's good. Here's I can fill out the address, and I can put a mailing address, and I can put a physical address if those two sites are different. A physical address, we would like to be where the garden is actually located, and then oftentimes a mailing address is the administrative location if there's an admin building at a different site, for example. This one is not required if it's at the same place as your mailing. Here's website, public email. This one, I'll just mention again that public email we would like to have as a general email, not for an individual, if possible. So let's just, I'll stop there with that. You can put your social media links so that we can link to you through our social media as well. I think that will be a really cool feature. You can upload your institution's logo, which is also nice, and put a featured image for your garden as well. So we're hoping that this makes GardenSearch a little more pleasing to the eye and helps people showcase their institution as well. You can give an overview statement to describe the organization. You can put your mission statement. And then here, we've expanded the number of gardens, or some garden types. So you can really go in and click as many as you want on here that describes your individual garden. It helps us characterize the type of institutions that we're serving. and helps us route the right information to the right folks. You can also click in on the number, any types of governance types that apply to your site. Again, I mentioned this earlier, you can help us understand how old your institution is. If you're open to the public, which will often, it defaults to yes. Your latitude and longitude, which is really important. Anything with a red asterisk is a priority or a required field that we would love people to fill in, and that helps us with mapping and locating collections and things like that. You can also put in some of this location specific things like altitude and precipitation and the number of hectares at your site. We have 3 different area things. There's landscaped area, there's natural area, and then total area, including all public and non-public, and as well as buildings and all of that. Then you can put in your total visitors and staff and volunteers. The number of people there is really important for us to know potential impact. Again, those are really valuable numbers to put in, and it helps us be able to communicate, for example, that we estimate around 1 billion people visit gardens around the world every year, and that's a really powerful number to talk to people about, and hopefully leverage more partnerships and funding. Then these are all, the next section here within this garden overview page is membership and accreditation. These are automatically filled in. This is where this field right here is where, if you're a part of the Caribbean network, that would be where your institution is acknowledged or recognized. There's also the accreditation that I mentioned. There's membership, ARBNet accreditation we align with as well. There's IPEN membership and related IPEN code or Index Herbariorum code. I think I'll stop with that. And then the last section of this top page, this garden overview page, is the staff contacts. And this is actually a fairly new feature that we built out as well in the numbers of different types of staff. Sorry, that didn't come out quite smoothly. But we have collections contacts. We also have director, which you'll be familiar with if you used the previous GardenSearch. But we also have like a membership contact. We have sustainability contact. If you have a certain person that oversees sustainability or education or research, I think those are the main categories. There's a number of other ones that if I came in here and edited, I can show you the different, I can show you the various fields that are associated with this one person. And one person can serve many roles at a garden, and that is just fine. So if you would like us to contact you about education or ecological restoration or any of these other contacts, that will help us route requests or potential opportunities to the right folks. I'm going to say cancel, don't edit that person, but you can see there's a number of staff here that have already been migrated from GardenSearch, the previous old GardenSearch. So that's the overview. I'll just mention that this page is the first priority for this current phase that we're in relaunching the new GardenSearch. So if you're able to fill out this first page, that would be great for your garden. Feel free to register, or if you have issues with contacting or changing any of this or associating with your garden, getting connected to your garden in the system, please let me know and I can connect you with the right folks and get you straightened out in our system. I'll just mention really quickly these other sections. I think I have some time. Lena, how am I doing? Okay, great. So I'll just mention, I'll give a peek at some of these other sections that we want to also mention, and I think those encompass about 40 additional questions. And so what we'd like to do is, we don't want one person to feel pressure to fill out the whole thing. So through time, we hope we can connect with your sustainability representative at your garden and ask them, hey, can you fill out the sustainability section, which has these questions here around institutional sustainability and other things that might be happening at your garden. And these are considered to be best practices and standard practices maybe by other institutions. Not every institution is going to do every activity, so that's okay if you answer no or negative answer. That's fine, and it actually might help us identify a need in a region. If we see a lot of gardens answering no for a certain answer, it could help us develop project ideas or help the Caribbean Botanical Garden Network identify needs in the area. So as we mentioned earlier, though, I just want to highlight that each of these sections are parallel and often are the same questions as the accreditation questions. For example, at BGCI, we tried to align the information and make it easier for gardens to become accredited, and also just make broader awareness about what resources and programs exist at individual gardens. Here's a great example of programs that exist at gardens. This research section, you can choose any number of research programs that exist at your garden or that you're directly contributing to, and then further describe your research team at your institution. And if that includes, you know, a lot of folks might be doing research and other work as well. So that is just fine as well. So that helps us to understand where in the world are people at different gardens working on, for example, floristics. Where is there a proper floristics research program happening at gardens? And that might help us target some projects or questions to the right people. These other sections are pretty straightforward and self-explanatory, but this one is, I'll just go up from the list, but the education and outreach helps us understand what types of education programs are happening. And we hope, for example, that one person, again, won't be filling out each of these sections, that we can eventually contact your education staff person and say, hey, can you fill out this education section? And we're hoping that maybe on every 1 to 2 years, we can get an updated report from each garden about their programs and what's happening at their site. We have an education program at BGCI, and we have an education congress. And this page in particular could help us structure future congresses to focus on subjects that might be lacking or might be of interest to many gardens around the world. This particular section is just talks about what kind of educational resources and programs do you have, how many individuals do you reach, how many adults, how many staff people do you have, and do you have, you know, just what types of programs, what kind of topics do you cover, those types of questions. Each section in itself is not very long, but taken all together, you know, it could be fairly long. I also have seen already in the last couple of weeks that GardenSearch has existed, I have seen people go through and fill out their entire profile. So that is also feasible and not out of the question as well. But we're trying to start with baby steps here. Plant conservation, this is getting into more of the things I focus on with our programs, but this one is focused around characterizing the conservation program and conservation work at your garden and the types of ex situ facilities and things that you work on? Do you have is plant conservation, is there a policy or strategy in place that's specific to plant conservation? And what kind of land area do you impact in natural areas through your garden's work? Then some other best practices and recovery, number of garden staff that work on conservation at your institution, how many volunteers might support plant conservation activities, do you support conservation assessment activities, and then what sort of habitat types do you work in? That will help us a lot, hopefully. And biosecurity best practices, invasive species best practices, conservation horticulture. This one's quite, this one's a little bit longer section. It's a priority section for us. And wild collection best practices is the last question here. But that is, those are all central to a lot of what we work on. Living collections, this one's a fairly short section, but it helps us characterize your collections in really important ways. And, the percent wild origin, this can be an estimation, as well as the wild origin in your seed bank, if there is a seed bank, and then total garden staff focused on horticulture is another question here. And some more about up here, I skipped, but some more information about your plant records and policies at your institution. I'll just give a really quick overview of the last section that's at the top here, which is around leadership and governance. And it's trying to characterize where your institution is headed in terms of leadership and overall support for conservation and biodiversity. And the first question is, does your mission statement include conservation of plant diversity? Yes or no? And that's a metric that we hope, will be supported broadly by institutions, and just gardens stepping up to say our mission does include plant diversity. Then we characterize more of the policies and the practices that support conservation. Does your garden advocate for policy? Do you maintain collaborations, kind of policies and strategies internally, and things like that? And it also gets some of the nuts and bolts around financials. For the first time, we're trying to track and be able to just track financial contributions at each site dedicated to plant conservation, as well as overall permanent and non-permanent budget. So that's really exciting. I think it will help us be able to describe the support that goes toward plant conservation in a really meaningful way. These are all the different ways you can contribute your expertise, we thought, to broader conservation support. And then evaluation of conservation activities and professional development and training for staff. I think that's the end of this section. Yep. So it just helps us characterize where your institution is in supporting broader conservation capacity. And you can go from edit to preview, and you can see what your profile will look like in the more public sense. And I'll scroll down really quickly to show you one thing, that further down at the contacts, we don't publicly release email contact information. We do list staff members, and this is what we did in the previous GardenSearch as well. And then we show the other contact types that aren't filled in, and I think that is probably the main idea I wanted to show about that. So that is GardenSearch in a nutshell. And we're really excited. This is the first step, as I mentioned. Here, maybe I'll stop sharing really quickly and just come up with, I'll mention some final words, and then I'm really happy to take questions as well. But this is the first really critical step in migrating our gardens and our users to GardenSearch. And then in the next month or so, we will be relaunching Plant Search and migrating plant collections data as well to the Plant Search side of things. So it's stepwise. This process is laid out in a number of steps, and we're already seeing a really good response from folks all over the world registering and updating their information in GardenSearch. And we hope to see a lot of great input from the Caribbean region. We'd love to have everyone updating their gardens and getting registered. Registration can be tricky, as I mentioned, so that's what we're really trying to focus on in this first step. And we're just grateful for all the garden data contributions. That's maybe my final kind of message I'll end on, is that you know, it does take staff time and resources to fill out the information, and we're just really grateful. It helps us compile capacity. It helps us focus on regions that need the most help, and we're also hoping to help facilitate like at your institution, you'll be able to track soon, maybe in the next phase of GardenSearch, actually, you'll be able to track your individual institution contributions to broader strategies like the global strategy for plant conservation, maybe the Caribbean strategy that I was talking with Lena about just a little bit ago. So happy for questions at this point, if anyone has any. I haven't checked in the chat at all, but yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Chad, go ahead.
That was kind of perfect there at the end, Abby. I was just going to add, it's in terms of the global strategy for plant conservation. I know that we're still waiting for the post 2020, you know, the full strategy, but we know that, you know, target 1 really is around that comprehensive information, when several of the other targets go back to that. So, you know, this is kind of a great way. This is really the baseline that gives us the information where we're at now and allows us to watch how this changes over time and as we move towards those targets, and gives us this opportunity, not just in the Caribbean region, but globally. So it's great to see representation from other areas around the world here. And, you know, we know that global strategy, that first target is really important, and we can't do so many of the other targets without this. So thank you for doing this. I think it's great.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Yeah, as we are following the moving target of the global strategy for plant conservation, we feel like we're in the GSPC is headed in a really good direction, but we still need to finalize the targets, and BGCI is helping to support that initiative, but we're not in charge of deciding the targets, and it's been a very community-based process. So we're hoping to just mirror that and remap our fields to the new global strategy for plant conservation once it's set. But the goal is that we can flag those fields, like you know, your floristics research program is directly contributing to target 1 of the global strategy for plant conservation, or, you know, as an example. So yeah, and we could think about other regional strategies. I'd be really happy to think about the Caribbean strategy, for example. And I know there's a Mexican strategy and North American strategy that we're talking about updating as well. And so. I'll just maybe mention, like, along the lines of the strategies, it's a very similar mentality with GardenSearch in that BGCI and other partners like the Caribbean network coordinators at, Lena and others, we will have access to like be able to see broader data trends across institutions, but we also are building GardenSearch to be, sorry, it's kind of echoing, sorry. We're also building the strategies, the tools, GardenSearch in particular, to be useful for individual institutions to be able to compare their institution to others, or actually just notice gaps in their own institution, or low-hanging fruit, like easy next steps they could take to contributing to, for example, a target of the global strategy for plant conservation, or maybe just expanding the type of conservation activity that happens at an institution. Hope that makes sense. I'll mute if Lena, if you want to say something.
We actually do have a question in the chat from Danny regarding the lat long location within the GardenSearch profile. Is that collected automatically from Google Maps, or is that input manually? Do you know?
So that I can double check this, but I remember doing a very lengthy project a while ago where we mapped every garden that we could, and we generated latitude and longitude manually. And we stored them in GardenSearch, and I believe we migrated that data. I'm just logging into GardenSearch again to see if I can edit. I can't recall if you can edit it directly or if you contact BGCI to edit it. No, you can edit. I believe you can edit the lat long. So yes, I see that. And we are suggesting a 5-digit accuracy point. This is a big leap for me because latitude, longitude is super important for us locating all of plant search data. So like if a garden reports their collections to plant search, we can map that location based on their garden location, their physical location. So this, those fields, those 2 fields, latitude, longitude, are actually really, really important. And I'm hoping that folks will find that straightforward. If there is a question about how to get latitude, longitude, I can also provide that data or that advice. I do go to Google Maps often to get lat long. You can right click on a location and get the decimal degrees coordinates.
Danny, I'm not sure if you had a follow-up question or if you're good to go. But in the meantime, does anybody else have any questions? Oh, okay, Danny, you're coming on. Oh, just thumbs up. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask?
Just another comment. In looking at the GardenSearch and eventually the PlantSearch additions, and then looking at the certification schemes, for us, it's been really valuable as we look at our collections policy, and we are looking at changes to our collections policy over the next year or so to be able to reach the certification. But from a strategic standpoint as an organization, there are a lot of gardens I know in our Caribbean region, and Danny and Jessica, certainly you, but some of the other gardens in the region are looking at strategic plans or master plans over the next few years. And I have personally found it as a great tool to help us to grow and meet the best practices when they're all right there in one spot. And we can kind of use that as a template, not only for, we don't see it as, oh, we're not doing that. We see it as, okay, this is where we need to be. So it kind of gives us an opportunity. So not only is it kind of benchmark the region, but it's a great tool for strategic planning.
Thanks, Chad. That's good to hear. That is exactly the intention, so I'm glad.
Danny?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. Firstly, Abby, thank you very much for this presentation. I find this this project is a huge one, and it's very useful. And Chad, I did want to agree that point that seeing sort of the lay of the land in terms of the kinds of questions that are being asked aligned to the accreditation process does lay out a roadmap of where we need to go. It shows us what steps we've taken and things that we should be thinking about as we want to move in the direction. So I just want to say thank you very much for Abby for putting this together. And I know there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So I really just wanted to send that message first and foremost. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Danny. That's awesome to hear. I've personally been trying to work on this for about 10 years. So I'm really happy that this is coming to fruition. I just want to acknowledge also, I didn't do it earlier and I should have, just acknowledge that I've done this with several partners, including the United States Botanic Garden has been a really strong partner on supporting redevelopment. The Chicago Botanic Garden and the Morton Arboretum, those are all 3 US-based gardens that I think have really stood up. We've leveraged several IMLS grants, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, as well as Darwin Initiative funding in the UK contributed partially to redevelopment of these sites. Anyway, there's a number of gardens that are really have partnered, and we couldn't have done it. I personally couldn't have done it without having those garden partners and the funding that came with the rebuild. I also just want to mention our developer. I feel like I hit the jackpot or won the lottery with the developer that I found through Chicago Botanic Garden. His name is Keith Damiani, and he has been so tremendous. He doesn't come from the plant world, but he has quickly learned all kinds of things. Like he read the international code for plant nomenclature. He just read it just to learn about it. And he said he wanted to tell funny stories at cocktail parties. So he's just like personally really interested and intrigued by more information and learning. But he also just hears the things I'm saying more from the botanic garden world. Like, we need to do this, this, and this. And then he will translate that into, okay, this is like the technical coding and all kinds of things that he does. So it's been, I am grateful every day that I know him, and he has helped us in tremendous ways push this forward. So.
Okay, and that is the perfect ending because we are at our 12:59 time.
Great. Maybe I'll just say one other quick comment that we, this is the first step, and we want to keep improving the tool. We think that tools are never really finished or done. So any additional comments that you have or needs, that you can see. I would love to hear your thoughts on or suggestions on what we might want to add in the future. So please keep that in mind and feel free to contact me. I can put my email address in the chat, and I would love to hear your thoughts anytime.
Yeah, and the email is also on the flyer that we shared out and circulated. Yep, and I'm sharing it on my screen as well. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Abby. If you have any questions about the network, you can reach out to me. I am the coordinator of the Caribbean and Central American Botanic Garden Network. I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. But yes, we are always here to provide any support in any capacity that we can. I will be reaching out to all the new faces personally as well, in case you don't have my information. But yeah, thank you so much, Abby. And thank you everyone for participating today.
Thank you, Lena. And thanks everybody. Really appreciate your attention, and thanks for all you're doing, Lena.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and have a great week.